Hello, everyone. This is Crota giving you Game 3 in a best-of-3 series between mousesports and Fnatic. This is a 2v2 matchup. That's one of the reasons why you are seeing four players, and I am so looking forward to this game. I do have Matron with me, who was co-commentating with me in Game 2, and Game 2 was just really exciting. What did you think about it?
Yeah, it was definitely exciting to see this game three after we did see game two. It looked like one team went for a little more tech and the other team just sort of defended and macroed up, and eventually Fnatic was able to push across the field with a huge army and force this game three. So we'll see whether Mouse goes for more of a tech opening this time. And like you did mention, I believe there was some resource sharing there. So that's one of the definitely interesting things about 2v2, and we'll see whether one or both teams try to take advantage of a similar strategy in this one.
Yeah. Now, I have played on this map a couple of times, so one of the key things to note is that there are sets of destructible rocks in the purple Terran player's base and also in the blue Zerg player's base. So there is a second entrance, a backdoor entrance, so to speak, that allows you to walk in other units besides blinking stalkers up and down ramps. So we'll see whether or not that's going to be used. We did see earlier that there was a ping coming in, most likely from from Ghosta, in order to set up those overlords in those positions, and perhaps just wanting to do a lot of pressure once more.
Yeah, the other interesting thing about this map is the ramps are quite wide, at least one for each player. Is if you look at the eastern and western positions, the ramps are actually too big for a single force field to block off, and it's unfortunate that we do have Sick having the large ramp because it's quite difficult for Zerg to sort of deal with that when you have free access for Protoss and Terran players up into your main, and it really separates the natural as well. That could be a difficult to defend natural for Sick. So we'll see whether Fnatic goes for some sort of pressure play. A lot of times you want to just, based on a spawning position and the race of your opponent in 2v2, you can sort of blitz the weaker member and try to take the game pretty easily early on.
Yeah, that does happen. And another thing that I just noticed after you were looking at the ramps, did you know that the ramp sizes are different for each of the players? Like one ramp size is one force field, and the other ramp is actually like that double or triple. So the one that has the backdoor entrance is almost doubly screwed, as they have a larger front door and they also have a back door.
Yeah, so it looks like Ghostea is going to be really well set up in the northeast because he's got the single force field ramp, whereas, as I was mentioning, Sick is in a bit of an unfortunate situation as Zerg doesn't do too well with these huge ramps here. It just gives so much access and I guess area that you have to defend. It can be quite difficult. Plus, he's got those backdoor rocks.
Yeah, exactly. But at least both of the Protoss players do have that narrower ramp, so they both will be able to use one force field if the time does come. You can see already that Sick has the Overlord set up on the or in the center portion at the 6 o'clock position for that blink to come in, and you already have another Overlord coming in along the north side that most likely will just be able to blink straight into the mineral line if set up properly.
Now, we've talked about the ramps quite a bit, but another thing to mention is they might actually dictate the strategy a little bit about which player is going to be teching. Since both Protoss do have that single force field size ramp, they can actually play a little bit more aggressively tech-wise because they will be able to just force field the ramp, whereas you see Phoenix having to get up a bunker and a strong wall with production structures at that ramp just because it's just a huge ramp and he's a lot more susceptible to early attack. And Sick, not really too much he can do as the blue Zerg to defend against that ramp, and he is getting out that natural. I mentioned it's going to be a difficult expansion to try to defend as the ramp is quite far from both the natural and the main. It can be difficult to get units over there as we see Sick streaming some Zerglings once again across the field. Going to take that early map control. He's got Overlord spread, he's got both towers, and he's going to be able to get good scouting information on his opponents.
Yeah, we also see the Twilight Council is already up, the Blink research already starting as well, so it looks like it is going to be just Stalker Blink as we saw before, so they're going to try to execute their strategy much better this time than in Game 2. It was fairly effective in Game 2, but they're hoping for Game 1 results this time around. So you can see the 5-6 Stalkers sitting in the center portion of the map. I'm assuming more Stalkers will be warping in over there, and I'm kind of curious as to why Ghosta isn't chrono boosting, and as I say that, he's actually is chrono boosting the blink, and now should be able to put some pressure along the backside. It will also be interesting to note whether or not he starts to poke at the rocks, or if he just waits for the blink itself.
We do have both Phoenix and TT1 have pylons and supply depots in position to spot these overlords, so they're going to know right away as soon as the Blink Stalkers make it up. But Phoenix is pretty well entrenched in that bunker and with the siege tanks down there by the ramp, as we do see a Banshee coming out, so he might be a little bit slow to react to any sort of Blink play, as the Banshee, is going to be spotted by these Stalkers, and the Stalker's going to focus down immediately. No cloak up for Phoenix, so that Banshee going to go down. And now both players know that on mousesports they're going to have to prepare for Banshee play at some point, as Blink coming in here once again, taking down the first tank. A second tank might go down, as just a few Marines are in position here for Phoenix.
Yeah, and that was just really well done. Even though Ghosta did lose a lot of his units in that particular engagement, he was able to get a lot of worker kills. Actually, the worker kill tab doesn't work in 2v2 players.
Looks like TT1 trying to help defend Phoenix, and actually a run-by happening here for Sick. He's got some Zerglings in the base of TT1, as the Zealot wall was actually busted down by those Zerglings. So now we have Zerglings free in the base of TT1. They're right now just doing a little bit of scouting, as there are Zealots chasing them, so not too much more harassment going to be done by the Mouse team at this point, but just a nice two-part attack there.
Yeah, that was the Zerglings running around was more to figure out what exactly TT1 was going for and trying to get proper scouting information. The robotics facility is there, and now it looks like once again we will be setting up another Overlord trying to blink back up onto the high ground. Now, I'm not 100% sure about this, but is it possible to blink up a ramp with destructible rocks and then gain sight? And like, I know that used to work before. Does it work now?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. It looks like there aren't any Overlords in position in the north, so the next blink probably going to be happening in the south here, and it looks like they were able to focus down that pylon, which was spotting for TT1. And TT1 getting out that observer. There's a Raven already out for Phoenix. They both know that off this blink, it looks like Ghost Day likes to go for those DTs, so they will be prepared. And once again, we do see Sick with a relatively low-tech opening, just now finally getting his lair, as another blink happens into the base of TT1, and just trying to focus down a few units and pylons before getting out of here safely. So once again, Ghost Day not taking too much damage, might be able to save all those Stalkers. Looks like one goes down. But again, sort of the same strategy we saw in Game 2, with Mouse taking a very aggressive style here.
Yeah, but Mouse definitely has the advantage at this point, as they both have their expansions already up and running. It looks like Ghosta's expansion has been running for quite some time. There's already 57 energy sitting on there. So that's going to mean a very, very much larger economy and being able to replenish those forces much more quickly. We also see an infestation pit, so we may be getting infestors with pathogen glands, and that is always a very nice addition. This is patch 132, so the infestors do move slightly faster, 2.5 versus 2.25, and then also Ghost costs 150 minerals, 150 gas, if you guys are keeping track of the patch changes.
It looks like Fnatic also getting up their expansions at this point. If you check the worker count, it's relatively even. Fnatic is just a few workers behind on each matchup. And it looks like once again, Mao's going to be pushing out. And again, Sick is using just Zerglings at the moment. And we see the Blinkstalkers coming in here, finally focusing down these rocks for Phoenix. So Phoenix at the moment just trying to get up that second orbital command, coming out with a few medevacs as well. It looks like he'll be going for some sort of tank and marine play, but he's not in position to defend against these backdoor rocks, as they will go down almost at the moment here.
Yeah, and right at the same time, there was a little bit of pressure on the front door, so the Zerglings were trying to do a run-by, and now the Stalkers will be able to simply get inside, use that stutter attack, be able to move and attack in, and a lot of damage on those units, and now the Stalkers opening up that back door, just being able to put a lot more pressure, and with Blink available, able to quickly get away once again.
Yeah, it looks like Ghosta, instead of going for Templar this time, has actually teched over and he's getting Colossi out. So that's going to be a lot better to deal with the Marine and Tank setup, which Fnatic Phoenix does have. And it looks like we have Sick actually getting quite a few Roaches as well. So now we see a huge Roach, Ling, Stalker, and now Colossi army moving across the field. And it looks like they're going to be taking advantage of the backdoor rocks as they are down, as we see Phoenix trying to get up some bunkers to defend here.
Yeah, it's not going to be able to get up in time. The Colossi already have the range upgrade. Stalker's now pushing in. Siege tanks are in position, but without any Vikings and without a reactor on a starport, those Colossi are going to be able to play it safe very, very easily. The Stalkers, however, having to deal with point defense drones, absorbing a lot of that damage, and now the Colossi finally making their way in. A lot of production buildings getting destroyed as the Roaches, with a range of 4, able to barely shoot past any of those force fields, and a lot of those force fields are what's keeping Fnatic alive so far. And now with the Colossi being very smart, just breaking down the force fields because they are in fact massive units, and the siege tanks just trying to just weaken this army left and right.
Yeah, it looked like Fnatic was a little bit late to respond here, just because they had the wall off at front, and both armies had to get into that small choke, whereas the backdoor rocks were pretty free and clear, so Ghosta and Sick were able to move in, but eventually once Phoenix and TT1 got into position to defend, Mouse has to retreat now, and they did a little bit of damage there, but I think it was a pretty decent army exchange, and now Phoenix and TT1, now that they've defended against this push, could possibly counter push, though it looks like the army advantage is actually going to go to Mouse. Did not believe that they were going to be able to macro up off this, but now still quite a few units and infestors in the mix for the next encounter.
Yeah, and at the same time, they're also expanding at the 4 o'clock location and the northern gold mineral patches here. So they're going to definitely be able to cause Phoenix and Fnatic to just sit in their base a little while longer, and at just taking their time. And because of that, they're going to be able to just macro up once again very, very easily. And the sheer number of gateways, the sheer production power of the Protoss army, even without any proxy pylons, just very, very devastating.
Yeah, so Fnatic sort of going for the same strategy as they had in the last game, is just absorb the abuse and then probably counter push. But at this point, I think the abuse and the push came from Mouse earlier, and now we see Blinkstalkers and Colossi possibly blinking into the main of TT1. And again, with the Cybernetic score and the Warp Gate here, it's going to be very difficult. These units are going to be streaming in one at a time, as the Immortals are doing their best to shoot and scoot and try to focus down the Stalkers. And at the same time, we have Zerglings moving into the northern position into Fnatic Phoenix's base, possibly doing a little bit of damage to the siege tanks and the Marines, which are up there.
Yeah, so just constant attacks, constant pressure, constantly on the move, so that you never know where you're going to get hit from next. And as a StarCraft 2 player, that's always very, very disheartening, not knowing that you're going to get attacked, but not ever having your army in the right position. And I think this may be the tipping point, as Fnatic needs to really move out with the army that they have now in order to try to do anything. Army size-wise, it does look about pretty even, but because of the additional economy and the resources, you're going to see a slight advantage for mousesports, especially as the main mineral patches are going to start mining out in the next several minutes.
Yeah, it looks like a scan just went down on that northern gold base, so Fnatic knows that they are behind economically. They're going to have to push out here. The Colossi are in the center, being focused down by Ghosta, so taking a free Colossi there. And now the siege tank's in very good position on this high ground. The Raven doing a little bit of sight for those tanks, and also getting up a point defense drone. And now it looks like Fnatic going to be the ones that are being aggressive here.
Yeah, so we'll see what's going to be happening here. The Raven is in position, also dropping some auto turrets. There's going to be a lot of just long-distance attacking going around, as now Fnatic just moving out with everything they got to try to take down this expansion, but that may leave their front door completely open and exposed, and that is going to be an issue. We do have, like, Ghost sitting very, very close by with a decent number of Colossi, or a very large just Protoss ball, but the Zerglings are going to be able to simply run by now and start poking apart at the main army and any of those units in transition. One expansion was taken down, but the Zerglings trying to get as much damage onto those Colossi and Marines and Marauders, but not really that much damage dealt there.
Yeah, Fnatic was able to take that gold base, but at the same time, it looks like Mouse is able to macro up, and now their army is pretty formidable, actually much bigger than the Fnatic army. So they can just possibly push here and win, as Fnatic is still on just one mining base each. And it looks like Sick is getting up his 4th base, so he can feed the Protoss teammate. And I imagine that we're going to have a huge battle here, as I see blue, yellow, green, and purple all making their way to the center. And it looks like, yeah, Fnatic needs to get their armies together. He needs to get their siege tanks into position, take more of a defensive posture, and hopefully take down the army of Mouse and then counter push here.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to note is that mousesports actually has upgrades. TT1's Colossi are still 0-0, while we have 1-1 upgrades and Broodlords now coming in. So those Broodlords, even though we do have Stalkers, the Stalkers are getting fungal growth, and now this is going to be a very, very dangerous position as those Stalkers are going to have Broodlings, and the Siege Tanks are going to start blasting away at them as well. Roach is finally coming in and trying to engage both sides and just exchanging back and forth. There's a large number of Siege Tanks, but I think if more Broodlords come in, yeah, the Broodlords are going to be able to eat apart the Siege Tank army here. And Phoenix was not ready to deal with the sheer number of Broodlords that were out with no Vikings in production. Those Broodlords were just able to repel that attack much more easily than Phoenix would have, or Fnatic would have liked.
Yeah, all the supporting units of Fnatic, the Marines, and the Stalkers went down, and just Colossi and tanks left, and they don't do too well against the Broodlords, as we see Fnatic, MSI, TT1 giving the GG, and it looks like Mouse will take this series. So a pretty interesting series, and a good recovery after a loss in Game 2. They continued with the harassment, but I feel like they were much more effective, and that might have had something to do with the backdoor rocks and just the map setup, and eventually they were able to macro up and push across the field after a few battles back and forth and take this one.
Yeah, just a really, really exciting series. Probably one of the best 2v2 series that I've been able to see. A lot of the times when you tell a pro player or like a very, very high master level player or grandmaster player that, hey, we want you to play in a 2v2, sometimes the skills don't translate that well. But I gotta say, I was really impressed. TT1 doing a good job, Phoenix doing a good job as well. I think Ghost A and Sick are specifically Mouse Sports' 2v2 team, and it's obvious with the sheer amount of practice that they've had working together. But still, TT1 and Phoenix should, I would say, just be happy with how well they were working together, even though they don't normally play 2v2.
Yeah, they had to take a lot of abuse there, and yet you wonder if the same timings and just the game sense, as you mentioned, possibly doesn't translate over from 1v1. I feel like Fnatic at some points in this game could have pushed out and really made Mouse pay for the fact that they were going for a more tech focused build, but we just didn't see that ever come from Fnatic. They defended in both games here. It worked out in one, but not in this one, the eventual winner.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this 2v2 matchup and game 3 in this best of 3 series. Hope to see you on BattleNet.